Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's the Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mafood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Coming up on this episode of the Entrepreneurial You.
And what's interesting to me is that we'll see students that just are not successful in school, in traditional school. You know, kids with behavioral problems, kids that are operating below grade level, kids with learning disabilities. And all of a sudden we provide this environment where they are free to explore. They're free to make mistakes. They're no longer restricted. They can get out and move around. They can start real businesses. And what we see is an incredibly high engagement level of these kids. So what's powerful is now families and teachers are able to see this whole new side, and also the children themselves see a whole new side they weren't exposed to. So my advice to families is, you know what, really allow kids to explore their passions and really help them discover that, you know what, there are ways that you can earn a living and be quite successful by exploring your passions and really building on that. I think that self-awareness piece is so key.
If we tried to think of a good idea, we wouldn't have been able to think of a good idea. You just have to find a solution for a problem in your own life. Brian Chesky, co-founder of Airbnb. Greetings again, my peak performer. How are you doing today? It is episode 146, yes, 146 of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. And you know, I'm your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter. Today's episode is with Bill Roche. Bill is the co-founder of Power Play Young Entrepreneurs, a charity that is committed to empowering young people with an entrepreneurial mindset. For over 20 years, he has specialized in designing K-12 curriculum-based resources related to financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and social responsibility. Bill works with education and business leaders throughout the country, and that's the US, to create community partnerships that are scalable and have impact. So I'm super excited to have this conversation with Bill on cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset in young people. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I absolutely love your podcast, and I just love your style and the way you create a rapport with the audience and your guests. So I've been really excited about today.
Awesome. I'm really excited to have you as well. And before I dive into the whole entrepreneurial mindset thing, I want you to tell me if you've ever had any Jamaican food.
Oh, I have not, but it sounds very great. I think the Jamaican culture really intrigues me, the vibrancy. So I can only imagine the food is fabulous.
Right. And this is a place at which we stop the interview and we say, okay, no, you don't qualify. We got to move on because you've never had Jamaican food. But anyway, I'm going to forgive you. All right. We all need second chances. That's all right. That's all right. All right. So, but yeah, we do have a vibrant culture, and I wish more of our people would recognize that, because so many times we are looking for outsiders to validate us when in fact we have it going on for ourselves, and we just need to tell ourselves that we're awesome, and we are awesome. So thank you for that, Bill.
You are. I think there's a contagiousness, that people want to know people from Jamaica, because there's so much excitement and energy.
Absolutely. When I travel, I'm the envy of my other Caribbean counterparts. You're like, yeah, I mean, we're here too. It's not just her,
That's great.
But that's all right. That's all right. We didn't, ask to be here. We just are blessed that way. So yeah, we're grateful. All right. So cultivating, I was about to say cultivating whatever, an entrepreneurial mindset. Now, yes. I just had a conversation, and of course, by the time this airs, it would have been like 7 weeks out. But I just had a conversation with Patrice Washington, and we were talking about the fact that, you know, we just are taught to go to school, get a good education so that we can get a good job, you know, and, you know, work for some, either become a lawyer, doctor, or whatever, and have this great job or whatever it is that we find ourselves in. We've not been taught in the West, really, to be entrepreneurs. And granted, not everybody can become an entrepreneur because entrepreneurs need people to work for us, right? But, talk to me about that mindset and what kind of culture you've seen developed over the years as a result of that mindset.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You're absolutely right about the school system. Traditional school is all about studying, getting the right education, and it's just not relevant to the new economy. And, you know, there's a stat that really concerns me, and I think it's very important to this conversation. And that is by 2030, it's expected that 85% of the jobs that will exist haven't been invented yet. So when we think of that in terms of the magnitude of that number, but also in terms of how quickly that is coming, it's incredibly disturbing. So to me, it's really critical to start young, to help kids from an early age start discovering who they are. And we do that by having them explore their passions and their talents and their interests, and then start developing a real world business venture so that they can actually have that experience and develop the belief system that I'm an entrepreneur. And that's where we can start shifting their beliefs about their future.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, of course, I'm of the belief that you can't take somebody where you haven't been, right? And clearly, you yourself are an entrepreneur. And so you are now putting and trying to reprogram young people. However, I want to hear about your own start as an entrepreneur. Where did that come from? When did that bug bite you, that proverbial bug?
Well, it's interesting. I started out as an engineer. So I went into university. I became an engineer. I worked there for a number of years in consulting. But the problem was, Heneka, I was terribly unhappy. And finally, my wife looked at me and she said, okay, why don't you just quit? Quit and start exploring what you want to do, what's going to make you happy. So that was an incredible gift. And I was able to then start thinking about a question that was really pulling at me. And that is, why do high school kids leave school and not know what they're passionate about? They don't know how they can do what they love and earn money. They don't know how they can thrive financially. They don't know how to give back and make a difference in their communities. So that to me was a very big question. So I started exploring and I said, you know, what if I went into a school and just helped them become entrepreneurial with that whole focus on making a difference? And my very first class, there was a student who just flourished. And at the end, the teacher and principal sat down with me and they said, Bill, this boy never participates in school. And so whatever you're doing something right. After about several months of doing this, I started to realize, okay, not only do I love this, but I'm really good at it. And so I decided to become an entrepreneur essentially and just quit went full time at developing my own learning model and helping kids really expand their potential of what their view of their potential of what's possible.
Mm-hmm. But isn't it sad though, because I'm listening to you talk and I am thinking about the same kind of mindset and mentality that is cultivated right here in Jamaica. So Jamaica, as you mentioned, we have a very vibrant culture. And
right.
Out of that, we have a lot of people that are gearing towards the entertainment field, the entertainment scene, and, you know, things that are of the creative industries, and their very own parents and those that are good intentioned will try and discourage them and like, no, you really need to, you know, get a job, make something of yourself, not thinking that even just fully immersing themselves in the creative industries, whatever they're creative at, whatever they're good at, is part and parcel of their passion and who they were called to be and meant to be. We follow this blueprint that society has already crafted for us, a one size fits all, which does not work.
Well, it's interesting in our program. So we work with kids as young as grade 4 right up to grade 8. So we start really early. And what's interesting to me is that we'll see students that just are not successful in school, in traditional school. Kids with behavioral problems, kids that are operating below grade level, kids with learning disabilities. And all of a sudden, we provide this environment where they are free to explore. They're free to make mistakes. They're no longer restricted. They can get out and move around. They can start real businesses. And what we see is an incredibly high engagement level of these kids. So what's powerful is now families and teachers are able to see this whole new side, and also the children themselves see a whole new side they weren't exposed to. So my advice to families is, really allow kids to explore their passions and really help them discover that, there are ways that you can earn a living and be quite successful by exploring your passions and really building on that. I think that self-awareness piece is so key.
And it's very natural because when you think about children, right, and how they were when they were 4 and 5 and 6, before they started to be, to be taught how to behave and all of that, they're naturally creative and have a wide imagination.
It's so true. And, even a number of your past guests have commented on that exact same thing. And I remember one in particular saying, which I talk about a lot as well, is that as kids go through school, once they enter that high school program, they typically become less and less creative and it's stunted. So what we believe is that if we can tap in and nurture and spark that interest and give them that solid belief from an early age, it really creates a whole new pathway to success. And that's something that families need to be more aware of, that, hey, entrepreneurship is a viable option. I think one of the things, though, Heneka, and you can tell me what you believe as well, but I think a lot of people just have negative perceptions of entrepreneurship. Many people think, okay, it's greedy, it's risky. Why would you do that? It's not a good idea, But the truth is, I think we really need to redefine what entrepreneurship is. And to me, entrepreneurship is about, as I said earlier, doing what you love, contributing in a way that makes a difference, in a way that's meaningful to us as individuals, but also at the same time being able to take care of ourselves and thrive financially. It's a whole package. And that, to me, is a strong definition of success. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily that we want to create all entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurial thinking is so important today. And regardless of what career path you choose, we need to think like entrepreneurs.
And you're absolutely right, because even, we can't have a world that is filled with all entrepreneurs, right? We will get our workers, but it's important that, entrepreneurial mindset, even if you're working for somebody else, that you bring that to the table, because that whole level of creative thinking, because entrepreneurship is just, in my mind, all what you've said, plus added to that, the creativity, the risk-taking factor, and of course, freedom. Talking about freedom to be who you are and to be fully developed into the person that I want to say God created you to be, right? We're all created with a purpose. And so once we're able to unleash that without any form of inhibition, or, even if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. What if I fail? Of course, those are natural questions that will come, a part of what you're doing, but, fail forward, find 100 ways not to do it the second time, right?
Right. I think that freedom to fail is perhaps the greatest gift we can give ourselves.
Oh my gosh.
It's so true, right? It just allows us to really break through barriers. And all of a sudden, it doesn't matter. If we treat failures, or if we treat it simply as learning and growth and really commit to that, it takes the pressure off completely. And it's funny, when kids will come to us when they first start out in our entrepreneurial project, what they will say is, what's the right answer? And we'll say, well, we have no idea. You're the business person. It's your decision. And we just want to see what you come up with. Use your creativity. And it's just, at first, it's like a deer in headlight. You see a deer in headlights. They're so shocked by the answer. But then they come back and you start seeing their imagination happening and kicking in. And you see their creativity in action. It's so beautiful to see some of the things that they can come up with. Mm-hmm. So the beauty of this process is that as you start developing that, you start realizing that failure is actually something we should welcome. And it becomes something that once you start building that muscle, we can build that comfort level with that process.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure with all the different personality types that we have, right, there are going to be some people who are very okay with wanting to have a right answer, in that they want to stay, they want to play it safe, and that's okay. But it should be okay as long as it's their choice, right? Not something that society has forced upon them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, we just have to be more open-minded as not only, our universities, our hiring practices, or university recruitment, hiring practices, and even the way parents are dealing with their kids. We need to just start treating entrepreneurship with far more value, because it's that when we're looking at this highly, rapidly changing world, we have to really think about economic development. And economic development requires that we're building an entrepreneurial culture. And so in order to do that, I think it has to be more of a system-wide change where we're truly celebrating entrepreneurship and supporting entrepreneurs of all ages.
I'm sure you've addressed it in a general way, so to speak, in terms of how different is your environment, training these young minds versus what the school does. Yeah,
it's for some schools it's a bit of a challenge. Teachers sometimes are in the mindset that I'm in charge. I'll give you a specific example. I was working with a teacher a couple of years ago, and she was brand new to Power Play. And but she's been teaching she was actually close to retirement. And she said, you know what? I love to try new things. I like to experiment. So she was telling me that with this particular class after the end of the program, she said she had a student all year who had a lot of behavioral problems. He didn't do well in school. And she said it was a pretty rough year. But when they started this entrepreneurial project, this boy became very engaged, very excited about learning, and he started to demonstrate his learning by talking and through verbal skills. And so it was really powerful because she was able to see that he had a different way of learning and was able to adapt her teaching accordingly. So it was really neat. So in the end, he had a great success, and then she said it continued on afterwards. So what I was saying is that with Power Play, we're going into schools and we have the privilege of working with teachers and just providing a tool and guidance and support so that they can incorporate entrepreneurial thinking into the classroom in a way that's unique to them. And what I love about it is that the teachers that I get to work with are very open. They want to explore. They want to make a difference in the lives of kids, and they do. And so they really see this as a tool that really helps them move forward.
And do you get an opportunity to also interact with these parents?
We do, and it's amazing to see, especially the kids that aren't successful in school. As an example, I went into one show, and this boy made this really nice soap line, and he was selling the soaps and really great packaging and had a big smile on his face. And I said, Keegan, you look like you're having fun. I said, why is this fun for you? And he said, well, with this project, I get to be me. And I thought, wow, that's such a great answer. But when I looked over to his mom, she was crying, and I knew there was a lot more to this story. So what they explained to me was that Keegan was never felt successful in school. He had output issues, but with this project, he was able to explore his own talents and abilities, and again, find his own unique ways of demonstrating his success, right? So they were really, really excited. So just to see the parent response and to see their belief now that, wow, entrepreneurship is part of his future. Like he can create success. He just needs to find his own path. And this was kind of the eye-opener for their family.
Wow. You said something very profound. The little boy saying that with this project, he gets to be me, right? He gets to be himself.
Yeah.
And how important is that on our entrepreneurial journey, that we be who we are and not trying to be a replica of what society wants of us?
Well, what's fascinating to me is when I talk to my colleagues and friends that are really, big successes in terms of entrepreneurship, there's a common thread that I see. And one of them is that many of them were not successful in school. Number two is that they're doing what they love. So they're actually finding out how they can contribute to the world in a way that's, again, unique to them. So it's really powerful when we are ourselves and we're truly in line with that energy and that creativity that you mentioned before. It opens up doors, and I think that's the power of entrepreneurship, is really living that passion and putting our marks on the world.
And what can you tell the parents? Because I know I have a lot of parents in my community. They themselves are wanting to be entrepreneurs. They're on their jobs and disliking their job, but perhaps they are, without even recognize it, very subconsciously perpetuating that same form of unhappiness that they were taught, like, I have to do this job, it's safe, whatever. But they're also perpetuating that to their kids now. What can you tell them how to approach their children from here on?
I was with some friends the other day, and entrepreneurs, that, again, really, really successful people in the entrepreneur field. And we were talking, and I said, I can tell you the moment in which I shifted away from my passion and blocked it out. And it was all based on something that somebody said to me as a child. And when I said that, all three of them had a similar experience. So the point I'm trying to make here is that as adults, as parents, as teachers, as mentors, what we say to kids has a can make a remarkable difference on their lives. So what I would suggest, just the basic things, are encourage them to explore their passions, really praise them up, really give them lots of positive feedback about their ideas and say, you know what, I would love to see where this can take you. How can you expand on that? I think that sort of language and that sort of mindset with the kids can really open doors and to really support them in exploring who they really are.
In your mind, Bill, what is most frightening about being an entrepreneur?
I think the most frightening part is the limitations that we put on ourselves. I really do. I think we're our worst enemies in many cases. I was listening to one of your podcasts recently, and I forget who it was. It was the young real estate guy. And yeah, he just had some really interesting things to say about that as well, and it really resonated with me. And that's when we hold back ourselves because of the perception of what failure is, or we think we have to do it ourselves, or we have to prove it ourselves. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen with entrepreneurs that are in my life is that they want to help. So one of my big suggestions there is to really reach out and ask for help. When you can't do it yourself or you don't know how to do it, ask for help, collaborate. You don't have to hold yourself back, because I think we're our worst enemies when it comes to that.
And the best part about it?
The best part is just being so fulfilled every day, because you get to do what you love to do, right? Especially when you can see the impact of what you're doing. I think that's so rewarding. And that comes in so many forms. It's, providing solid employment opportunities for your staff or your team, or it's about your product making a difference in the world. It's really what resonates with us as individuals. So it's finding that passion and really enjoying that fulfillment and just riding that wave, because it's an incredible experience to have. I think entrepreneurship is one of the most powerful opportunities for people.
Absolutely. I don't think I've ever shared this on the podcast before, but growing up, I was a very introverted child. I felt, although persons, like, even in my mind, my very average stage, persons thought, like, oh, you were brilliant, whatever. But I never saw myself as brilliant. I never saw myself, and my grades would tell you, like, I was an average student. I was never an A student. I was an average student, but some persons, because of perhaps where I grew up, they thought that was great. I didn't think so. But it wasn't until I became an entrepreneur I saw who I really am, and begin to see me for myself. Like, I know that I can do whatever I put my mind to. I experiment, I fail, I try again, I'm passionate, I'm driven, and all these things I know about myself simply because I answered the call to become an entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. And that really sums it up. It's interesting, Heneka, we did a documentary recently. A filmmaker followed one of our classes and followed four really students with really distinct backgrounds and learning profiles. And at the end, you can see, well, I don't want to ruin the story for you, but, as a viewer, we don't know if they're going to have success, because they are truly free to fail. But they are following exactly the process that you're describing, right? They're taking risks. They're stepping out of their comfort zones. They're exploring this. And there's one boy in particular that is so incredibly painfully shy. And to watch him break out of that comfort zone and just to see the impact and the feeling of being able to make a difference in the world was what really came out for him, was so profound. And that's kind of what I was seeing in your face as you're speaking. So yeah, I love that. I think that's so powerful. Well, what's interesting was an entrepreneur named Matthias Marquez. I think he's one of the most inspirational entrepreneurs I know. And he was at our premiere screening, and he said, "You know what, Bill?" He said, "I have to ask you a question. I came to this documentary thinking that it's going to be about entrepreneurship." And he said, "I'm starting to think that it's more about self-awareness." And he said, "Did you consider that when you started this program?" And I said, you know what? Not only did I consider it, that was the driving force. And that's what really enabled us to really get that out there is helping kids discover who they are through that explorative process, which you just described so eloquently. Yeah.
Amazing. Bill. It's the end. We've come to the end of our... Yeah, we have. Time flies when we're having fun, right? Yeah. But of course, I want to hear from you. Just wrap up your final thoughts, like, how to help to create and craft this entrepreneurial mindset to the parents that are listening. And after that, then you can share with us how we might get in touch with you and any giveaway that you have.
Great. Thank you. I guess the key message is we're a Canadian charity and we really focus in on helping young people develop an entrepreneurial mindset. So if I was to sum that up in 3 tips, I think the first would be, to really make growth and development a part of our regular practice. So really encourage that with yourself or with your kids and just find ways to explore and experiment. I think the second piece would be to, welcome mistakes and treat mistakes as learning opportunities. And the third, really ask for help when you need it because people want to help you. So those would be 3 tips, I think, and from a parent working with their kids, I think, helping them find mentors, or if you don't know the answers, it doesn't matter. Just getting out there and just exploring that process can make a huge, huge difference. Yes, in terms of contacting us, our website is powerplay4success.com, and 4 is the numeral 4. We also have, if you're interested in the documentary, we have the mindsetmattersdoc.com, and our Twitter handle is at powerplayye, and so people can contact us that way. But the PowerPlay website is the best way to get all my contact information. Heneka, would be very happy to share the documentary with some of your listeners. So if they want to contact us and just simply say that they're a fan of your podcast, we're happy to give them the link, and we can provide that to you to provide to your listeners as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bill Roche. It's my pleasure to have this conversation with you. You're passionate about it and you're reaping amazing success, and I want to congratulate you as well and wish you all the best on your onward journey.
Thank you. I really enjoyed our conversation. Such a pleasure.
Awesome. And to you, my peak performer, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode with Bill Roche. I look forward to connecting with you next week. In the meantime, I'm inviting you to join me for one-on-one coaching to create a strategic advantage to drive your business, improve your personal life, and have professional breakthroughs. Coaching with me will move you from stuck to unstuck, and who doesn't want that, right? So to sign up, simply go to HenekaWatkis-Porter.com and send me a WhatsApp message letting me know that you are interested in having me coach you, and I will respond to you quickly, I promise. Remember, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. Work good.